I know about you.
Know what?
I know enough, boy.
Oh, what do you know, boy?
I know you killed Mikhail Faustin. I know a group of Russians want you dead. I know you ain't no saint, boy.
Saying Liberty City would never let Niko walk away is a title that's a bit too on the nose. Saying it that way suggests Niko ever really had a chance to walk away to begin with, and I don't think that's entirely true. The reasons he comes to the city are far more complex than that. They're tied just as much to his brutal, soul-crushing past as they are to the hope of seeing his cousin Roman again. He comes stateside chasing the life Roman promised him. Luxury mansions, success, sports cars, the endless streams of models Roman claimed were on his arm every single night. That dream pulls Niko in, along with being chased out of Europe by Ray Bulgarin, and his own quiet hope that coming to America might finally give him some sense of closure. From Niko's point of view, it's easy to say he came here for a better life based on those reasons alone, which was a very complex bunch. But then there's also much more to it. He's also searching for Florian Kravitz, who he believes is living here. And when Niko finally finds him, his reaction says everything about his driving mission. He kicks in Florian's door and meets him at gunpoint, coming face to face with the man he believed betrayed him and caused the deaths of 12 of his childhood friends.
What are you guys doing here? Why did you kick my door down?
I've come to ask you some questions.
It wasn't you, was it?
What was it, me?
Who set us up? It was you or Darko. I thought it must be him. Oh my god. You think it was me? That's why you are here. You've come to kill me. Well, screw you, Niko Bellic and Fatty Roman. It wasn't me, wasn't. I wouldn't do that.
For much of the game, this moment is hinted at as the one where Niko might finally find some peace and be blessed with just a little bit of closure, to be able to finally close that chapter and settle into this new life with Roman. Instead, when he later meets Darko, the real traitor, revenge gives him nothing. It leaves him empty. It forces him to question who he really is and what he's even good at. In his own words, he deals in death because death is all he was ever taught and all that was ever handed to him. Even if we attempted to get past this notion of him coming to the States looking for closure, where none can really be found, Roman's problems within the city and the many contexts that Niko comes to form will do nothing but make it that much harder for Niko to get away from his past. This isn't just another video about Niko, but about the city he's come to, and how every avenue he finds himself going down does nothing but make his overall situation worse.
We got loan sharks after us. Roman, Stase de Shava.
Roman is the cornerstone not just for Liberty City's whole story, but Niko himself. Leaving out the wild lies he told Niko of his grand life he was living, Roman was in a much worse position than anything Niko could have ever imagined. Never mind the roach-infested apartment or honest cab depot Roman ran, the bigger issue was Roman's loan sharks. From the Albanians to Vlad and his Russian masters, Roman clearly had a big problem with taking money from people that he had no business getting involved with to begin with. The Albanians would come to full-on attack Roman within his cab depot and brandish a knife in Niko's face, compelling him to resort to violence for the first time since coming to America. As time goes on, Niko would go on to completely finish off the Albanian loan sharks, killing their leader Dardan after his men cornered Roman on some basketball courts and beat him without Niko being around to protect him. Well, the killing of Dardan would serve as a turning point for Roman and Vlad, as Vlad would no longer be competing with anyone else and getting his money back from Roman, and basically showing to him that Niko, unlike Roman, is and can be quite useful for his own needs. There's the other connections Niko goes on to create directly through Roman. Jermaine, although a very small character within the overall story of Grand Theft Auto 4, actually I think he's only ever seen in one mission, I would still say is somewhat important in terms of Niko's overall mission, as Jermaine is the first person Niko directly admits to that he's searching for something. He's the first person that he also explains that ever since coming to Liberty City, his hands have only gotten dirtier. A statement that is all the more true as you continue to do missions for Vlad and meet the other major contact through Roman, arguably one of Niko's closest friends throughout the entire game, little Jacob.
Sure, I promise I'll comfort to a fool on Niko. A boy for creep before him can walk, you know.
Yeah.
His friendship with Jacob grows right alongside the level of violence Niko goes on to unleash across the entire city. Jacob himself is actually the first person in Liberty City to ever hand Niko a firearm. It's nothing crazy, just a modest Glock 17, but it gets the job done. Niko uses it to protect little Jacob during a meeting that quickly goes wrong. Instead of the one person they were expecting, 3 men show up. All of them open fire on Jacob, and none of them end up surviving thanks to the kill zone Niko and Jacob set up together. From here, little Jacob's missions see Niko pulled further into drug trafficking and conflicts with rival gangs. At the same time, Vlad begins using Niko as a tool to pay off Roman's debts, sending him out to extort locals for money owed. One of those jobs has Niko stealing a car from a client who refuses to pay what he owes to Vlad's boss, Mikhail Faustin. It's a while before Niko ever comes face to face with Faustin himself, but by that point he's already killed multiple people for personal reasons, Darden and Vlad among them. All of this happens while Niko takes on increasingly dangerous work, earning more money, solidifying his place within a new country, and building real connections, especially with little Jacob. Really, there's something almost poetic about where all of this happens. As Niko points out, it all happens in Broker, a place not far from the docks, filled with people from the old country, and a place that feels eerily familiar to home. He commits to jobs that, in the end, arguably land him in worse trouble than anything he ever did back home. His actions only drag Roman deeper into danger, directly undermining the hope of a new life within this new country. Eventually, Niko's killing of Faustin would come back to haunt him. Even the corrupt cop Francis McReary catches wind of it, and later uses that knowledge to blackmail Niko into doing jobs for him. But the immediate fallout is just as significant. With Faustin gone, Dmitri steps in as head of the operation, and with it, Niko realizes his old boogeyman from the Adriatic, Ray Bulgarin, is here in Liberty City too. Even before this realization, his old life and tendencies were already tainting his exposure to this new world. Given Roman's mounting debts, Niko's determination to protect his cousin, and his own drive to find Florian, these overlapping pressures push him deeper into the mess he ultimately finds himself trapped in. And let's not forget his intimate relationship with Michelle. Another set of eyes and ears strategically placed on him as soon as Niko got to this country. From the very beginning, his supposed desire for a fresh start is already doomed. His old life is too tightly bound to his need for closure, and his protective instincts won't allow Roman to be taken advantage of. Not without Niko stepping in and dragging all of that past violence along with him.
Look, brother, will you help, please? Look, I got money. I got money.
In which case you've got help.
Following their forced relocation to Bohan after Roman's apartment's burned down by the Russians, Niko and Roman are forced to start over again. But this time, for Niko, it's different. Early on, Niko's still figuring out a new country, trying to understand the US, how it works, and where exactly he fits into this brand new environment. Now, that curiosity is gone. Instead, his focus narrows completely onto money. Everything becomes about income and staying ahead of the next problem before it catches up to them, becoming this natural evolution in Niko's impact within the city. Going from a naive immigrant to understanding old problems can become his permanent reality that just repeats his old life, and in some ways, as he acknowledged before, mirrors the way Roman was living with the Russians and the Albanians. It's while living in Bohan, it's through Mallory's childhood connections that Niko's world begins to expand. Through Manny Escuela and Elisabetta Torres, Niko's exposed to a different side of Liberty City's criminal ecosystem, one that exists well outside the immigrant neighborhoods of Broker. Ironically, it's Manny, once a drug addict and former gang member, now publicly devoted to cleaning up the streets, who ends up acting as a bridge to another performative character, Francis McReary.
For a cop, you ain't so bad, man. You know, give it up. The streets, man. Word, give it up. Hey, Officer McCree, this is Niko right here. This is my man Niko.
Oh, good to meet you. I hear you're helping this guy with his vital work for our city.
Who meets Niko while participating in one of Manny's attempts to build a positive public image within the community. At the same time, Niko's work for Elisabetta brings him into contact with Francis's brother, Patrick McReary, and Playboy X. Those would turn out to be the two biggest connections that Niko meets through Elisabetta, while Manny's sole connection is through Francis. It's interesting to think through one connection Niko's pulled into systemic corruption, with said characters putting a big emphasis on appearances, while the other, albeit equally as dubious and dangerous, are more in the realm of quote-unquote honor, as it's less about appearances and more about making money and respecting the power behind those who wield it. And aside from Elisabetta, it's Playboy who appears to be the most set up. which makes sense as he explains to Niko upon their introduction that Elizabeta doesn't get him to do anything. He's coming along Johnny's heroin deal simply because he likes to stay connected. He's a big-time player with many jobs on the horizon, sharing his number with Niko, who later follows up by seeing Playboy's own penthouse, an event that does nothing but solidify that Playboy has genuine opportunities. While Playboy and his former mentor Dwayne do well to serve Niko's time within the story, or at least Niko's own personal story, their overall time is more of that, a personal emotional impact rather than one that further drives Niko's involvement into the criminal element, which is a bit of a shame, as even though Niko did have a personal liking to Playboy, the opportunity and connections he appeared to have really does feel like the one big connection Niko establishes in earning serious money until it eventually ends up going nowhere. Another dead end of which is Elizabeta. After getting into a heated argument with Jacob over a deal gone wrong, as the people she was working with ripped her off, and due to little Jacob being the one who introduced them to her, he accepted fault for the wrongdoing in her eyes. Niko is then sent to retrieve the coke they stole off of her in an attempt to alleviate the growing tension between her and little Jacob. Heading to an old abandoned hospital, he'd kill the dealer, fight off the cops that unexpectedly arrived, and meet Jacob in an alleyway with the cocaine. Here Jacob would begin to discuss he thinks he knows where all of this heat during the drug deal and around Elizabeth is coming from, at which point Niko's new American girlfriend, introduced to him by Roman's girlfriend Mallory very early into the game, steps into frame, revealing she's a government agent.
Yo, me think me know the eater come from in a king.
Hey, Niko. Hey, Jacob.
What are you doing here? This is no place for you, Michelle.
As it happens, it is. You see, Niko, I have been working for the government. I'm afraid it's my job to watch you. And now I have to ask you for the coke.
This is a joke, right?
Please, please don't make this harder for me than it already is. Look, they're about to take down Elizabeta.
I don't fucking believe this.
Listen. I'm sorry it had to be this way, Niko. I'm really sorry. Hey, you know, you could have gone down too if you weren't so useful.
You fucking bitch.
Even during this initial reveal, he appears to be naive about Michelle's true intentions until she spells it out to him. When he finally does appear to understand, confusion gives way to anger, but as Michelle says, Niko should be grateful in the way things are playing out. If it wasn't for him proving to be as useful as he would have been taken down immediately alongside Elizabeta. And Niko has proven to be extremely useful. Despite Michelle having her eyes on Niko from the moment he entered the country, Niko's ability to infiltrate as many people and establish criminal organizations within the city as he was able to, from the Russians, Elizabeta, to later getting involved with Jimmy Pecorino and his associates, Niko's supposed clean slate or unfamiliarity within the city, doubled and served as a means to help the IAA, and thus Niko. Michelle's own inquiries in the early parts of the game gives us a decent enough idea of what exactly she was looking for, from gently prodding about why Niko would even come to Liberty City to begin with, almost sounding disappointed hearing it's just Roman that brought him here. When going out with her, she'll allude to knowing Roman has a gambling problem, became involved with dangerous people, and starts asking if Niko believed they would begin to use Roman for their own activities. Now for first playthrough, she seems nosy and annoyingly coy due to her not really sharing much information about herself. In hindsight, she's obviously building a case, but in breaking it down, it's a complicated mixture of the IAA at some point catching wind of Niko and doing their homework on him, or doing their homework on him retroactively. The game intentionally leaves it all vague, making it quite plausible Michelle was originally meant to focus on the Russians, identifying Roman and Mallory as an entry point of sorts. Mallory was sleeping with Vlad, and Roman, with the former having an affiliation with the Russian mob, while the latter was in debt to them, had a gambling problem, talked to the point of oversharing, and was emotionally open. He would have been the perfect person to begin surveillance on, and probably stayed as such until Mallory most likely shared more of Niko's exploits, eventually landing himself with Elizabeta, showing to Michelle and her bosses that Niko wasn't a copy and paste of his cousin, but someone that could be taken advantage of, using his past and the entire file they compiled against him as a means to incentivize he works alongside them. Fundamentally not too different from what Francis McReary did. Only with Francis, it was both smaller in scale, as he only knew of Niko's doing since he got to Liberty City, ignorant and most likely uncaring of what he did back in Europe. highlighting the more personal nature of the relationship as much of Niko's work for Francis centered around keeping Francis's image as clean as possible, taking out anyone who even had the slightest bit of information on his illegal activities, culminating in Francis even hiring Niko to kill his own brother who threatened his career. The United Liberty paper, however, would turn blackmail into genuine rewards, in both wiping Niko's file of all his criminal activity within Liberty City and helping him find the person he came here searching for. It would be the ultimate clean slate, wiping everything he's done while learning the ins and outs of this city, protecting Roman, and being given that closure that he came here looking for. The United Liberty paper would come to place Niko in contact with one final person that embodies the heart and soul of Liberty City, John Gravelli.
I want you to work with me.
In exchange for what?
The police have a file on you an inch thick. In exchange for that. In exchange for that guy you've been asking about being brought here from wherever it is he's hiding, Switzerland or some shit.
The connection between the IAA and old-school mafia families like the one Gravelli represents is an element within Liberty City I've only grown to love more over time, especially when compared to how Rockstar handles the FIB and even the IAA in Grand Theft Auto 5. Between the two games, 4 handles the government agency much better, with everything being far less personal, at least from the perspective of the government agency's representative, and replaces it with this feeling of it all just being purely transactional. Perhaps that speaks more to the, let's call it, lure of the Grand Theft Auto universe, with Rockstar taking this position of claiming the IAA is a much more professional and frankly quietly terrifying institution, taking the stance of you're either going to take what we give you, be grateful for it, or suffer the consequences of your own actions. Nonetheless, the transition of working with the United Liberty paper in the name of patriotism and national security to then working alongside the Don of the Gambetti crime family, the strongest and most powerful mob family within Liberty City, fundamentally mirrors Niko's whole time within Liberty City. Gravelli's men working in tandem with the ULP contact would be the ones to both locate Darko as the man Niko has been searching for and arranging transportation from Bucharest, Romania, where Darko was hiding this whole time, back to Liberty City directly to Niko, essentially ending the personal mission that compelled Niko to come to this city alongside Roman to begin with. There's wiping his entire file, and then the work that he actually does for Gravelli. Work that acts as a giant circle of what he has done since coming to this city. Gravelli would initially use him as added security for a politician arriving to make a big speech against organized crime, specifically Russian organized crime, as the Russian mob under Demetrius slowly began taking advantage of Gravelli's weak health and began muscling in on very lucrative city-owned contracts his family has held for decades. With Niko acting as security for a man that would deliver a very powerful speech, it serves as another blow towards Demetrius' operations. Then there's Gravelli sending Niko to kill a man by the name of Kim Young-guk, who's been running counterfeit operations within Gravelli's territory. Killing Kim would be Niko basically erasing his mistake of helping Kim to begin with, as it was originally Derek McCreary that arranged protection for Kim to enter the city, with both Niko and Derek protecting his boat from the Albanian mob. The final job Niko would complete for Gravelli would be taking care of cocaine-loaded vans operated by the Ancelottis, the weakest of the mob families within Liberty City. They have come to work with the Russians, which for Gravelli is the ultimate insult, as he spared the Ancelottis dons decades ago, and his repayment is, as he says, selling drugs while working with Ivan the Terrible. Taking out this distribution network would serve to benefit both national security, as the United Liberty paper contact claims, as these vans are prepared to be sent all over the country, while for Gravelli clears out his own personal territory. While on paper, and even at some points within their interactions, working with ULP appears to be both dysfunctional and even a little resentful.
So, you fought in the war?
You know a lot.
Yes, you're looking for some people.
We're all looking for that special someone.
But most of us don't want to kill them when we find them.
Most murders are committed by people you know. Most wives are killed by their husbands.
Yes, and my wife had better stop sleeping with that tennis coach or... I'm joking.
I'm sure your wife doesn't need to sleep around. Oh, I'm joking. I'm sure she does.
Funny.
However, I think the time Niko works with the ULP arguably is one of the most successful and, in the end, most respectful connections he makes, because it's all business. He does get everything he wants after all, and within the context of the story, he's then free to focus on himself and Roman's next stage within life. which ties us back to the premise of this video. Liberty City would never let Niko walk away. He has no happy ending. Based off player choice, you either lose Roman or you lose the chance of being with a genuinely nice girl who knows exactly what Niko is and grew up in a family surrounded by the brokenness that defines Niko. He doesn't have to explain or go into painful details. Instead, the two of them could come out together, marked by their individual paths, but ready to move forward with a happy life and more positive outcome that's not rooted in the past. And when he's finally able to mentally get ready for that positive change, he either loses the closest person to him or he loses the person that represented that newfound beginning.